forward. In our next panel, we will be exploring how to engage consumers through impact. We've got an exciting lineup of speakers, and that starts with our moderator, Mike Sherbakov. Mike is the CEO of Greatness Collective, which supports startups and investors with the mission to create a better world. He also serves as director of San Diego's Founder Institute, which is the largest early stage startup accelerator in the world. And he happens to be a former Marine who believes that our greatness is not what we have, but what we give. So a question for our Founder Made community in the chat box as we move forward into this next panel, something to think about. What is your greatness that you, your brand, or your company have to give? Mike, take it away.
Thank you, Julia, and super happy to be here. Terrence, Ash, Jason, and Andy, thank you as well. And what I'd love to do is kick it off before we dive into the professional side of things and talk a little bit first about the personal side. So you all run a purpose-driven business, and I'd love to know first, the fact that you run a purpose-driven business generally means that you started by asking the question of your personal purpose. So my question to you, as you introduce yourself a little bit, is how does your personal purpose tie into your professional purpose, and how have you found meaning in the work that you're doing and what you're working on? And we can start with Terrence and then over to Ash.
Thank you, Mike, for the introduction. So that's actually a pretty good question because it wasn't that obvious when we started. So when we started ShipUp, but at the beginning, what we wanted, like the driver, was the human experience of launching a company. We were out of school, so we didn't have like big plans or whatever, but the human experience was the driver. And as we had to build this human experience of launching a company and hiring people, we figured out by looking at who we are, that caring was one of our guiding principles, something that really get the purpose of what we do and why I go to work every day. And it turned out that even though it wasn't planned, that what we do at ShipUp is caring, is helping online retailers showing they care after the customer purchase. So usually when you buy online, you pay, and then you have this very stressful experience, which is called like delivery. And usually you feel like your online retailer doesn't care about you, like you're on your tracking page on USPS website, it hasn't moved for days, and you feel like, well, they don't care about me. And we at ShipUp, we help online retailers showing they care by saying, okay, we saw there is a problem with your order, and then giving you updates on your delivery and proactively finding a solution. So that's how we actually kind of merged like something that was super, like not really planned, which was like a value and gaining principle as of ShipUp as a team, which is like caring, and how it's actually also part of our product. And it was a driver in how we decided on what kind of product we wanted to develop, and caring is now everywhere in what we do. So we can talk about this later on.
Wonderful. Thank you, Terrence. And before we move to Ash, just as a quick reminder, if you don't mind introducing also yourself, the company, and in a sentence or two, what you do, and then how that personal purpose of yours has tied into the mission and purpose of your organization, please.
So I think I kind of made the link between like the, so just to give a bit more context about like ShipUp. So we launched like 5 years ago. We are like 45, and we are SaaS for online retailers, and we are post-purchase platform for online retailers. And that's so we strive to make the post-purchase experience of ShipUp also something great. So that's kind of our mission. It might not sound like saving the world, but I think caring is something that is, and post-purchase experience is all about showing you care, is actually something that kind of make the world a better place, like being listened to, being there when there are problems and solving problem together, not giving up easily with customers, is what actually make the difference for people's life, because that's why you are not alone on earth, kind of. So I don't know if it kind of responds to your question.
It's great. Thank you, Terrence. Ash.
Hey everyone, my name is Ash Cherian. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Thistle. We're a West Coast-based tech-enabled prepared meal delivery company. What we do is we get really delicious plant-based meals delivered to the doorsteps of customers that are located in California, Nevada, Oregon, Washington, and the entire West Coast. We will talk more about kind of what we do, but we started this journey 8 years ago. My co-founder is my wife, Shiri Avnery. Before we started Thistle, I don't think that either of us could have predicted that this was the path we would take. I had actually started a career as a corporate lawyer working in New York doing mergers and acquisitions. I think the best way for me to describe my purpose then was to make very rich people slightly richer, which doesn't feel very good when you come home at the end of the day. And was always really passionate about my own health and the choices that people broadly made when it came to impacting their health. Come from a family of physicians. My great-grandmother, who lived to be 101, had 43 doctors that were her direct descendants at the time of her death. So invariably in growing up, every conversation most likely converged into what patients did you see and what were they suffering from? And the common link between all those conversations that I listened to from family wasn't that they were all of these novel reasons why people were getting sick and ultimately dying. It actually boiled down to behavioral choices by and large. And to put a fine point on it, people were eating poorly and were not getting nearly the amount of exercise that they needed. And of those two factors, diet played a disproportionate role in those outcomes. So cardiovascular disease is your number one killer of people. It'll kill 1 in 3 people globally every single year, quickly followed by obesity, type 2 diabetes, forms of cancer, et cetera. And all of these have a strong correlation to diet. And for a physician, the tough thing is we're going to give you some medicine to treat your symptoms, but you have to make the behavior change. And no one was doing it. And so this was a problem that had been rolling around in my mind for a long time. And as I was very miserably looking for what to do next, this was one of the things that I dug into very heavily. My co-founder, Shiri, she's a PhD in environmental science, similarly was looking at the choices that people made on a daily basis that impacted the environment. There was a disproportionate focus on we should recycle more, drive an electric car, and do things that seemingly were having an impact, but actually weren't. And in fact, the single biggest impact an individual can have on planet is actually diet. And that means reducing the demand for animals and animal products. And so in looking at these twin problems, which were getting worse over time, they pointed to one solution, which is if you can make it incredibly easy for people's default choices to be eating more plants, eating less animals, then you actually have the chance of helping a population invest and improve in their long-term health. And you actually have a chance in helping a population improve the sustainability of the planet. So that's the link between personal passion and the company that we formed and exists today.
Beautiful, Ashwin. Thank you. Very clear, that connection there. Jason.
Yep. Hi, everyone. I'm Jason Perocho, run by product marketing and market strategy at Braze. And if I were to look at my career, I would say that the big steel thread is that relationships truly matter. Relationships were extremely important for me, being a minority in a small farming town, in the military, and then most importantly, when I had to battle cancer at 23 through 25. I remember being like extremely busy and just trying to figure out like surge from appointment to appointment. And it was like during that time that I really fell in love with like technology, for the sole fact is like technology really helped me keep my life together. I mean, it helped break through all the noise and all the clutter that was going on and just helped me focus on like where I had to be, at what doctors, at what time. And that was really important because like, I mean, I was out and about, I was trying my best to serve in the military and get this cancer treatment at the same time. And the institutions that I worked with were able to get me like the right message, like whether it was email or there's like text messages that were sent, just ensuring that I would show up and be at the doctors. So like when I got out of the military, I was like, where do I want to go, or what do I want to do with my job? And it was essentially to be at an organization who really cared about building relationships. And essentially that's what we do here at Braze. Like we help forge relationships between companies and their customers by breaking through that noise and reaching them wherever they may be by delivering that right message at the right time. But it's honestly not just about technology. Like everybody on this panel is here because of like more of a social enterprise aspect of it all. And like the thing here at Braze is like we are a very values driven community. And one thing that I'm super proud of our company for doing is during all the unrest last year, during the Black Lives Matter protest, like we recognized that we needed to do more as a company, which is why us and a few other companies decided to create Tech for Black Founders, in which we donate our product and our time to Black founder companies who are bootstrapping. So those have less than $30 million in venture capital, those are less than 150 million or 150 employees, and we give our products away for free. Because like we recognize that like the business of business is not to make profits, but the business of business is to improve the communities in which we live and to build those relationships out.
Wonderful. And again, such a clear tie between the personal purpose and everything you've experienced in life and what you're working on now. So thank you for that, Jason. Andy, over to you.
Yeah, hi, I'm Andy Krantz. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Paravel. We're the leading sustainable luggage and travel lifestyle brand, predominantly direct to consumer, and largely focused in helping people build out complete travel systems, everything from your wheeled luggage to how you organize within it to the bag you carry more in your day-to-day mobility. And in thinking about how we were building the company, you know, my co-founder and I were both heavy travelers in our personal lives and in our work lives. We were actually working together at a luxury Spanish fashion brand prior to founding this company. I was overseeing a store in Miami. She was on the board of directors in Madrid. So we were pretty much on the road every week for one reason or another. And what became very clear to us, especially in our personal travel, was that these areas that we were traveling to enjoy the natural beauty of the environment or a particular ecosystem in a region were being damaged by the very fact of our travel there, right? They were all being heavily impacted by climate change. And it was accelerating even as we were looking to start the company 7 years ago. It was really dramatic, the pace at which things were accelerating. So fundamentally, when we sat down and thought about it, right, travel is carbon, and yet we're traveling to these areas that carbon emissions are increasingly destroying. So what we set out to build was a business within the travel universe that made it easier, to pull through what Ash said earlier, that set out to make it so that you don't have to work hard to make a better decision within the arena, right? We didn't want consumers to have to sacrifice their own, we came from the fashion community, we had luxury backgrounds. We knew people made aesthetic decisions, right? We also know travel, it's incredibly important to have extreme levels of functionality and durability. But we really wanted to prove that you did not need to sacrifice in either of these areas in order to choose a product and a methodology of an ethos around travel that was a better decision for the planet and really more aligned with what you are trying to do as a traveler. Ultimately, where we are now, right, we've evolved forward from just thinking about the impact of the company, of the products, mitigating our own supply chain and so forth. And really now we're focusing on how do you then get the customer and your community to think about what that behavior looks like for them, right? So it's not just about offsetting the emissions and using recycled materials of our aviator wheeled luggage bag. We also now offset the customer's average first trip with that bag as part of the beginning of a dialogue with the customer around how to think about her own practices within the travel universe, because we recognize the importance of everyone taking individual action in these larger behavioral manners in order to really mitigate a lot of the damage that's being done in real time.
That's Very powerful. Thank you, Andy. So I think for everyone in the audience, we've seen a shift over the last few decades into this conscious capitalism movement, looking at things beyond just a single bottom line. And I think for a long time, at least for the last 2 decades, I'd say we focused on triple bottom line. So we have people, planet, and profit. And I personally believe that now we're moving into an era of quadruple bottom line, which is people, planet, profit, and purpose. And as you all just demonstrated, there's a deep purpose in what you're doing that ties into your personal mission and vision. So my next question, and we'll go back and start with Terrence, then go to Ash, Jason, Andy, and then we'll do something popcorn style. But the question is, the title of this panel is how to engage customers through impact. It's great you've got this mission. It's great that you've got this organization. My question is, how do you communicate your mission and vision with your customers and your community? Terrence, we'll start with you. And you're on mute, so please unmute yourself.
Yep, sorry. So it's a good question. In our case, we are not like a purpose-driven, like sustainable development company. It's more about the kind of social responsibility of being there for the customer. So it's pretty different from the previous cases. In our case, so it's being there for the customer of our customer. And being there for our customer, and we just like try to developing. So what I developed earlier about the caring, it's developing relationship like a couple kind of relationship where you just try to make their life easier and better. And what I said is about listening. And solving problem together with the customers, and not giving up easily with them when there is like difficulty. That's another way of being there and having some impact with the customer, and that's what we do with our customer at ShipUp.
Great, thank you, Terrence. Ash, how do you communicate your mission and vision with your customers?
Yeah, that's a great question, because in today's world, the attention that our prospective customer gives you is very, very limited before they move on to the 1,000 other things that they're doing over the course of their day. So I think the thing that we always said was going to be our North Star, and this goes back to something that Andy said, was there's so many rational, positive reasons why people should be eating more plant-based. But I think the biggest reason why people don't is because they think that it's too hard, and difficulty comes in the form of this is not going to taste good, or it's going to be too expensive, or I'm not going to get enough variety or the right level of nutrients. And you have to remove all of that, and you have to tap into one very specific emotion tied to this notion that you're not sacrificing, right? This emotion that comes from knowing that you made a good choice, right? When you do the right thing, there's a very specific emotion behind it. But what's more powerful is by showing people that you get to have that feeling because of those choices without sacrificing some of the things that are most important when it comes to your food choices, which is this thing going to make me feel really good because it tastes amazing? Is this going to taste better than what I would have alternatively? And if you can convince someone that not only is that true, but then, oh, by the way, unlike other things that taste really good but make you feel really bad afterwards, you're going to feel great after you eat this thing, immediately afterwards, and you're going to feel great years and decades from now if you keep eating that thing. And I think that's the first and foremost thing that we try to communicate. And then we're a subscription-based company, which means that by definition, people have decided to use Thistle because they want to do something over time. And that gives us this really, really nice opportunity to give people the incremental information of the power of the choices they're making over time. So once you get that person to be a customer, you convince them because you've told them we're going to make it really easy to get delicious food. Great, everyone wants that. And then you start to tell them, this is the powerful impact that you're having on your own body over time that you may not have realized. And we do that via direct email communication. We have an internal Facebook group for customers that's very active. We have a customer support team that goes above and beyond. You can call in and talk to not just a customer support agent, you can talk to a dietitian to ask questions that aren't even related to Thistle. We use all of those opportunities to give people the right information, which can seem overwhelming if you just give it to them all at once. And over time, you end up building this loyalty and group of people that are incredibly proud of being part of this journey that we're all on together. And I think bringing them along is the most powerful way that you can kind of share that purpose and mission.
Wonderful. Thanks, Ash. Jason.
Yep. I can answer that question in two ways. First is action. Second is technology. Now, heading on action, if we all remember, Facebook has been utilized as a platform to organize mass protests or organize what happened on January 6th. It also was a place where we have less than nefarious members of society that go and promote racist ideology. And Facebook refused to take a stand against that. So the way that we communicate our values at Braze is by actually living our values, and we cut off all ad spend to Facebook because we do not want to spend money on a system that promotes that type of those types of actions. If we want to be a purpose, if we want to care about purpose and people, as we say, as the quadruple bottom line, it starts by a company taking action and taking a stand for the values in which they believe in. The second area is through technology. I'm just thinking through one of our biggest clients being the American Cancer Society. In order to help them communicate their values, like it's important to be relevant and timely with their donor base. And like what we help customers like American Cancer Society do is to create these campaigns that go across all channels and specifically hit on specific events or timing. So for example, American Cancer Society, once somebody raises $100, like they get a notification after the quarterly reports are sent out about where specifically their money went to. So they understand like how their donations are being used. The other thing that they do in order to do fundraising is when it comes to Cancer Survivors Day, they push notifications out to all those that have had cancer and beaten cancer, and a congratulatory notification, congratulations for like surviving, and also a note about how they could help others in their position. But it's about like understanding the context of the world that's going around around them and getting the right message at the right time to their folks in order to continue with their mission purpose, their purpose-driven mission.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Jason. And Andy, over to you. How do you communicate your mission and values with your customers?
Sure. So I think there's three key components here. The first one is that you need to meet your customer where she is. And for us, as we think through that, it means, if you come to us because you saw an ad we did run on Facebook or Instagram, and you did just love the look of the bag and felt like it was the right thing for your next trip, that's fine. If that's the reason you purchase it, that's okay too, right? It's ultimately for us, the goal is then just to make sure that at some point in that process, we help you walk away having learned one thing you can do in your own life, in your own behavior, in order to mitigate your impact, right? And sometimes that happens in the initial transactions. Sometimes that happens downstream when we send content-based emails that are in a sustainable living series where we tackle different topics. And 1 week we may speak to people about the most sustainable ways to decorate your home, right? Completely unrelated to our actual company, but really about saying we have this community we've built. Not everyone is a climate expert. Not everyone is even primarily motivated by that as part of becoming one of our customers. But what can we do with the community that we have in order to help people get over that hump, right? The second area, and it's similar to what Ash spoke to, is lowering the barrier to entry. It's really not all or nothing. You don't have to live a zero waste lifestyle or decide that you don't care about the environment and you just can't handle dealing with it, right? This is how we end up in this classic tragedy, the common circumstance that we find ourselves in. It's such an insurmountable issue. So really the way for us that we're able to communicate that to our customer is in the third point, which is being authentic and being transparent with our community. We're not, there are things every week that we push to do better, right? And there are decisions we make right now that we will work to make better in the future. You know, personally, I don't compost, right? Sometimes I forget to take a metal straw with me, but that's all fine because everybody needs to take the steps that they can each take in their own time. And it's those progressive movements along the way that really add up to the cumulative impact that's necessary.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Andy. And you actually teed it up perfectly for the last question. I have so many more. Unfortunately, we're kind of getting to the end of this panel, and we'll leave it popcorn style, so feel free to jump in. But the final question for the panel is, you have 30 seconds to tell a founder, a CEO, someone that's leading an organization that says, I want to make an impact. I want to be more impactful. They could be just starting out, or they could be 10 years into their journey. What's a piece of 30-second advice that you would give to someone? And I think, Andy, you touched on it briefly just now. What would you tell someone that tells you, I want to be more impactful? What do I do? Feel free to hop in, whoever wants to.
Yeah, I'm happy to start. I think the biggest thing that I can provide advice on is impact takes time. And so that means that the decisions that you make will almost certainly not have an impact on this quarter. And in fact, it might have a negative impact on some of the things that you may also care about, such as financial metrics, because you may be increasing costs. Say, for example, you want to pay your employees a living wage or a wage that's above a certain barrier. That'll increase your costs today, but it'll almost certainly make you allow you to have better people down the road, because more motivated, better paid employees are going to be more productive, happier, et cetera. So my advice would be, think about things over a longer time horizon rather than, is this going to have an impact today, this quarter, and advocate for things that take time to have the impact you want.
Great advice.
On this one, I think a good advice is, like, when we talk about impact, we think about also like scaling. It's like at a pretty high, large scale. And how do we have like scaling impact is there's one way, it's education, and education of whoever it is, like employee, customers. And that's how you basically solve like sustainable issue, telling people to eat better food. That's also how you solve like social inequalities through education. And everyone has the power to educate people around, and that's how you have, I think, you can have a very impactful impact.
Education, love it.
Education.
And Jason or Andy, final thoughts, 30 seconds. What do you tell someone that wants to have more impact?
I would challenge you to think about what your KPIs are. It has to be more than just the bottom line. It could be something as simple as an employee health survey score. You could come up with sustainability goals, but there has to be something more than just the bottom line. If you're measuring just the bottom line, you're failing.
I'd say it's never going to be perfect, and it's never going to be the exact right time. You're always going to have issues that are hanging out around the edges, and you can't be afraid of them. Too many companies are paralyzed by the fact that they cannot change 100% of their supply chain, 100% of their product, 100% of their practices into adopting sustainable methodologies. There's too much of a litmus test, and they're afraid that by speaking to any one thing, it just highlights the rest of their business that isn't part of that rubric, that doesn't follow that framework. You can't be afraid to just take the first step forward. And in the climate that we exist in, you always need to remember that doing something is better than doing nothing. And so if all you can do is something, that's okay. At least start there.
Powerful words to end on. Thank you so much, Andy. Doing something. So Terrence, Ash, Jason, Andy, I want to thank you so much for your time. I feel like we could talk about this for an entire weekend. Thanks for making time. I'm sure everyone that was part of this received a lot of value.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Mike. Impact takes time. I love that. There were a couple of other key takeaways. I wrote them down, so I'll read them quickly. When communicating your mission and vision with your customers, it's important to let your customers know you're there for them. It's also important to remove the noise and tie into the emotion of your customer to make sure they feel good about their decision. To communicate your values and take a stand through your actions, and for your customers to walk away with one thing they can do in their own life to make a change in their behaviors. So thank you all so much. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day.